that. That is crazy. So apparently the people who sold the land to him are saying his lease is up, but we all know he hasn't been here for as long as they're saying. They're saying 50 years is up, but we know he hasn't been here for 50 years. And people are here looting it, like looting what they can out of the building.
They're trying to steal our roofs and the sidings and stuff.
So what, they just turned up, no notice?
This morning they turned up. I wasn't here early when they turned up.
Right.
Our people were cooking in the kitchen. They turned the electric off, and then they started dismantling the building.
Wow.
They took the grates, that building right there.
Yeah. That one, yeah.
The building right here is destroyed right here.
Yeah.
I just heard when I was in Kingston, somebody put it on our site that that building is still, I have pictures of that building, it's still up. They've taken all the windows out, all the doors out, and the grates, the security grates. That was the only building we had that was secure. That building back there behind the water tanks is the kitchen. So they were preparing food there this morning for the lunch that we do every day. There's a vegan restaurant.
Right.
We buy for 12,000, will be 1 Ghana CD, 20 pesos. A ball of cake, you buy 4,000 CDs, will be 10 Ghana pesos.
So we come over here, y'all assume we have the money because we come from the States, which to a certain degree because the city is less, sure. But you have to think too, like let's say me myself, I have busted my tail to save money to even be able to come over here. So when you raise the price on me and I'm not some millionaire, you know what I mean? It's very disheartening because I save money to come here. I don't have a lot of money, you know what I mean? So in the States, I think there's a misconception that black people have the money. As a majority, I mean, there are like, you know, individuals, but as a majority, we have the least money in the States.
I started that series, I decided not to say anything political. My main objective is to educate youth in Ghana, especially artisans in Ghana. I want money to come with you. Said the mayor, the university now, but after some time now, I also realized that there's no way celebrating a survival in a society, bro. The political atmosphere, and foul. Because then you shouldn't say from this angle, say, what you coin, what be a jumbo, or to upon where you or love, or desire, self, say, what does I say, Ghana, that will be a jumbo, and I will see that. Now, Okushia or Hene, Amana Mawasasi.
All right, everyone. Okay, everyone, we are here. We are live. Welcome, everyone, to this Red Room live show. Can everyone hear me properly? Can someone just put it in the chat if you can hear me properly, please? Here. Okay, so we're here to discuss what's going on with Ghana. Okay, Ghana is officially bankrupt. Let me throw that out there. And I want to go over that. I'm going to be giving you guys, I'm just going to be real. This is the Red Room, everyone. This is the Red Room. So I'm going to be having a series of these live shows because this is an opportunity for me to just kind of engage with all of you there, you know. So I've got my mods in the chat. So thank you for really helping to moderate the chat. I will do my best to really look at the chat as often, but I want to just concentrate on the show. So I have my mods out there helping with to really regulate the chat. If I see a comment, you can get my attention by supporting the show. So if you send a super chat, I am going to read that. Those are the ones that I'm going to be reading. That's how you will get my attention. But I want to just get right into the show because I've got quite a lot to cover, and let's get to it. If at any point I lose signal or you can't hear me for whatever reason, just let me know. I'll try to do my best to work this whole thing out. So Ghana is officially bankrupt. This was broken by the news was broken by New York Times, which broke the news and was carried by other publications. And I'm going to read you the version of the New York Times. I'm not going to read everything. You can find this information online. It's essentially out there. So Patrice Cohen from the New York Times broke this story on September 18th. So it's very brand new. And it says, crisis and bailout. The torture cycle stalking nations in debt. So it says the government of Ghana is essentially bankrupt and has turned to the International Monetary Fund for the 17th time since 1957. Okay, so that's the IMF. So it goes right here. It says Emmanuel Cherry, the chief executive of an association of Ghana's construction companies. He sat in a cafe at the edge of Accra's Children's Park near the derelict Ferris wheel and Kiddle train as he tallied up how much money government entities owe thousands of contractors. Now, before the interest, he said, the back payment add up to 15 billion cedis, which is roughly $1.3 billion. Now, most of the contractors are home, Mr. Cherry says. Their workers have been laid off. They've not been paid. Okay, these are contractors in Ghana. Like many others in the West African countries, the contractors have to wait in line for their money. Now, teacher trainee complained that they were owed 2 months of back pay. Now, independent power producers that have warned of major blackouts are also owed $1.5 billion. The government is essentially broke and bankrupt, he says, after defaulting on billions of dollars owed to foreign leaders in December. The administration of President Nana Akufo-Addo had no choice but to agree to borrow $3 billion loan again from the IMF. Okay, so let's stop right there. I did a video and I predicted this. I did a video 4 months ago, which I want you guys to take a look at, where I predicted this essentially, that this was coming. You see, there have been warning signs that there were countries that were at the brink of bankruptcy. Countries in Africa. Certain countries were at the brink of bankruptcy. Ghana was one of them. South Africa was another one. Tunisia, Egypt. There were a couple of other countries that were at the brink of bankruptcy. And these countries also were predicted to also have civil unrest due to the bankruptcy that might come up. I did a video 4 months ago, and I want you guys to take a listen to what I said in that video. This video was where I talked about and exposed the scam behind the year of return. Yes, I said scam. The year of return was a scam. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. So let me bring that video up so you guys can kind of see it. The call by the Ghanaian president was an economic strategy. Had nothing to do with the PR that it got. It was for an economic boost to Ghana. Okay, so let's go into it. So Ghana has been experiencing some challenges over the years. It's no secret that the economy of Ghana is on life support. It has been for a while. As recent as even last year, Ghana's president went to the IMF to borrow money again, which they were just approved of that. Ghana has defaulted on its loan. Ghana's economy is in bad shape. Ghana, amongst a couple of other African countries, are on the brink of civil unrest. They are actually at the brink of bankruptcy. It is pretty bad in Ghana. And I know that what we've mostly heard is a romanticizing of the economy of Ghana, but the situation is bad. which is why Nana Akufo-Addo wanted to do something that didn't involve borrowing money, because they borrowed more than they can borrow. And he needed to inject capital into the Ghanaian economy without a loan, without having it come from a loan. So the initiative, the year of the return, while very clever and very strategic, was primarily, and it was the goal for that, was a economic boost to the Ghanaian economy. He needed to find money or way for money to come into the country without it coming from either a loan from China or loan from the IMF, because he's maxed out already on these, and the interest rates on those are really bogging down the economy. And so he and his cabinet members came up with a clever idea, because and which has since been coined the year of the return, which now has morphed into what's called what they call it right now. It was called the year of the return, and it's now called beyond the return. Okay. Now here's why that was doomed to fail from the beginning. The reason why that strategy, when I heard it in 2019, and when I saw the attention that it got, and all of these African Americans on the internet, which were paid, some of them were paid to sponsor, to talk about it. They were paid by the Ghanaian government to talk about this in the airwave. The reason why that was doomed to fail from the start was because there was no way that that was going to inject capital to Ghanaian's economy the way they were hoping. Here's what I mean by that. Now, obviously, this video was 4 months ago. It's 58,000 views on this video, and quite a lot of comments. Now, this video was to expose the entire fraud behind the the whole year of the return, and it was primarily, that was one of the reasons, but also this video was looking out for African Americans. That's why I put that video together, because this video was scamming African Americans. Now, obviously, it's sad that a lot of them did not get it. They were devoid of understanding. They didn't get the reason why I did that video. Most of them did, but a lot of them didn't. And I got a lot of attack from mostly Ghanaians and African Americans attacking me. And I just had to block all of them. You know, I have about, from that video alone, I had to block about, believe this or not, 384, most of which were African Americans and at least some Ghanaians, attacking me on that video. You know, you would think that video was an attack against the African American community. It was. If anything, I expected Ghanaians to be upset about that. But it was amazing to see that many African Americans upset at that video. And I had to block a lot of them because I don't have the time for that. You know, if you didn't see the wisdom and the fact that that video was looking out for you, then I don't need to hear what you got to say. You got to go away. See, that's one of the problems I have with that community, is that most of them are very devoid of logical reasoning. Because that video was exposing Ghana for what it is. And in that video, I said that Ghana is on the verge of bankruptcy. You should go watch it if you haven't seen it. And I thought about how Ghana had gone to borrow money from the IMF. And now we've just seen they've gone again to go borrow money from the IMF. They're totally flatlined. They broke. They're bankrupt at this point. And that video was to sound a warning to African Americans that, listen, don't go over here, because they're on the verge of civil unrest. They're on the verge of bankruptcy. But, you know, the ones that got it. And I truly appreciate the ones that got it, because those are the ones that express their gratitude on the comments sections. And those are the ones that those comments are live today. But the ones that came attacking me, calling me names and all of that, I had to block all of them. You're not going to do that on my platform. You know, you're just not going to do it. You must have lost your mind. Right? Because if you're going to disagree with me, and that's okay. But if you start calling me names for no reason, I'm just going to block you, and who cares? Do you understand that? And I'm going to give you a lot more information in this video, why that video was done and what it is that's going on in Ghana. See, what African American community didn't understand was that, and here's another thing that's going on with the year of the return that I'm going to also talk about. In addition to the scam behind that whole year of the return, which essentially, there was no way, as I mentioned in that video, that was going to work. There was no way that whole thing was going to work. For the reasons I gave in that video, and I gave very concrete reasons, which if you watch anyone with logical sense will see that that was a common sense thing, except those who just came. And then later on, I found out the ones that were attacking me were exactly the ones that were scamming their own people with the Ghanaian government to pull their people into Ghana to scam them using the year of the return. What do I mean by this? So when they announced that in 2019, prior to that, the whole idea of that was to pull African Americans in, as I mentioned in that video, to try to build Ghanaian's economy, because Ghanaian's economy was already flatlined, was already in trouble. And I mentioned in that video that they couldn't go to the IMF anymore because they had flatlined, and they couldn't borrow money from China, which is the truth, because they borrowed too much. As what we just read said about, they've gone to the IMF 17 times to borrow money. 17 times. And they've defaulted on their loans several times. The most recent one was last year in December. And that was a sounding bell to our African-American brothers here. That why would you go to a country who's on the verge of bankruptcy? Like, I don't get it. Why would you leave a first world country like the United States and go to a third world country? And not only a third world country, you're going to a country who's on the verge of bankruptcy. I don't get it, right? But nonetheless, I also, in that video, talked about the ones that are actually going there. See, the ones that have sense did not take that. They didn't take the bait. They didn't. They weren't going to move. It's the ones that have this, gripe against the country here in the United States, or aren't doing anything. They're not working. Those are the ones that went over there. But even that, in that situation, why would you put yourself in a very impossible situation to go to a country like Ghana, right? First of all, your ancestors came from there a long time ago. And Ghana was a hub. This is the part that really, Ghana was a hub. Most of the slaves didn't come from Ghana. Ghana was just a transitory pathway for the slaves that came mostly from Nigeria. It was a transitory pathway. So the idea that Ghana was going to now somehow use and call people back home as though most of them were taken from Ghana, it's the most scammy thing out there. But nonetheless, and then out of that came the various people who were online talking about Ghana was giving out free land. Understand that? I mean, you guys have heard this. They were giving out free land to African Americans, which is not true. I've since I did that video, I received quite a few number of people that emailed me thanking me for doing that video. And they gave me a lot of more information that I never was even aware. The whole land thing was a scam. The whole giving away land was a scam. So here's what's going on. On top of the ploy of and I'm going to get to the other stuff I want to talk about. On top of the ploy of this whole, let's bring you back home because your ancestors were taken from Africa years ago, and want you to come home because of the transatlantic slavery that happened 400 or so years ago. All that nonsense, right? On top of that ploy, there was also this money scheme that they were going to use through the false advertising of so-called land given to Ghanaians. So to African Americans. So many of those lands were given by chiefs in certain part of areas in Ghana. So chiefs of certain villages in Ghana, who supposedly work with the Ghanaian government to say, hey, we're going to give out this part. If you believe that, if you really believe that. But anyhow, they were supposedly chiefs, that were giving out this land. But this land that most of them were getting were not cleared with the families that really own that land. Most of you from Africa, you guys know what I'm talking about. Land disputes. Land dispute is a huge thing in Africa. Most times, most people go through the extent of clearing lands with family members. You can't register your land when you buy a land. Sometimes you go through a scheme of where someone sells you a land and the whole family that owns the land isn't aware that land has been sold to you. This is what's going on over there. So there are various chiefs in Ghana giving out lands and properties of families who they have not cleared this with, selling it at upwards of $800, $1,200, $1,500 to African Americans. And these guys are buying it and getting what's called forged certificates, which seems to be real to them, but it's forgery. And it's only when they go and try to register this land in the land registrar office that they find out that this land hasn't been cleared. So that's one instance. The other instance is that some of them that are started building on land start to get harassed by, you guys know, the Omoniles, those type of guys. They get harassed that this land is not yours. And to them, they're thinking, because you don't know the system. You fell for the okie doke. And this is what's going on with our brothers and sisters in Ghana. This is the part they don't want to talk about, because everyone is romanticizing this entire year of the return thing. Now, I'm all for African Americans or British blacks or people, I'm all for that because I'm from Africa. I'm from Nigeria. I'm all for my peoples here to go and learn about their ancestors and where they come from. I'm all for that. What I'm not all for is people scamming people, deluding them on this whole idea of year of the return just so they can get their money and so they can enrich themselves. The only people that got rich off of this are the chiefs and Nana Adolfo-Akol, the Ghanaian president. These were the two people that got rich off of this whole thing. The people now, there's a land dispute in Ghana that a lot of African Americans, and they're so embarrassed to say this. And I can understand this. I can understand because this is their money, their livelihood that is tied to something. Now they're all tied in litigation. There's a dispute in most of this land. There's one particular one, the Pan-African village in Ghana, is one that is involved in this dispute, where the chief over there is selling lands that hasn't been cleared by the family members. And these African Americans who thought this land, they bought this land, who thought that they had this land legitimately. This is a legitimate land. They're excited to start building and investing in their land, are finding out now because they're getting attacks. They're getting people coming with machetes. They're getting people coming with dangerous weapons to attack them in Ghana. You guys are not hearing this. This is what people have told me that have reached out to me. And this is what's going on under the blanket of this so-called year of the return thing. And so that video was to expose that. And it was so sad that I didn't get that many African Americans attacked. Why are you attacking me? I mean, of course, most of them appreciated it. I mean, that video had a lot of great positive comments. Most of my peoples really loved it, shared it. That was a good video. But to find that our African, the ones I'm looking out for, you see, that's the problem right there. Didn't get it. They didn't get it. And I'm like, okay, whatever, man. It's your money. It's your time. I hate that you're going through this. But if you can't listen to people, if you can't listen to someone who's from Africa, trying to warn you about the situation in Africa, I mean, that to me is a common sense, logical reasoning. If you can't listen to someone who's from that continent, who knows a lot more than you from that continent, who you listening to? You listen to another one of your own. And here's another part that no one is talking about. A lot of the scams were perpetuated by other African Americans. A lot of those scams were perpetuated by their very own people who had websites set up, but get land for free in Ghana. Ghana's giving it away for free, whatever. And they lured their own people. They scammed their own people to make a profit in Ghana. They worked with some so-called chief in Ghana. Now, I'm not saying all of the lands were all dirty deals. I'm not saying that at all. There were some of them that were legitimate. But a great deal of a lot of them too, fell in a very shady scheme. And many of them have lost money off of this year of the return thing. Because for the life of me, I don't get it. Why anyone will leave the United States. Most of the people from Ghana are coming up here. Most people from Africa come to the United States. You're going over there. And you're not just finding a country, though, that a country that is stable. You're not finding one of those. No, you go find one that is on the verge of bankruptcy. You didn't do your homework. You didn't do your due diligence. You fell for the okie doke, and that's another thing with the community too. Is this, and I think that's why the Ghanaian president knew that they could do this with African Americans, because most African Americans, a lot of them, fall for the shiny objects. They really do. They fall for the okie doke, fall for something that seemed to be a trend, and they fell for that, and that's the issue we're seeing. And my heart go out to them. My hearts go out to them. But my advice for that community is, you need to, if it has to do with Africa, sit down and listen to people who are from there. Ask questions from people who are from there. Don't go with your emotional feelings, because you don't know anything about that country. I'm going to tell you about Ghana today.